Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Tinfoil Tells. I'm your host, Brandon. Tonight, we're going to be joined by my guest, Linda. Linda is a medium. She's been helping people get in touch with she believes to be your family members and doing what she can to try and help other people out. I know she works with some groups, but before we dive into talking with Linda, if you've ever had an encounter you'd like to be on Tinfoil Tells, you can send an email. Email me at tinfoiltellspodcast@gmail.com. It can be about any type of encounter you had, paranormal experiences, UFOs, aliens, cryptids, conspiracy, whatever it is you want to talk about. Shoot me an email. We can discuss it and get you scheduled for a future episode. It's a wide range of topics here, so anything goes. Whatever you want to talk about, it's all good with me. You can find us on social media, usually on Facebook more than anything, but I need to really start getting into the whole other social media, so I might start upticking here in a little bit. I recently just released a new book. It's a work of fiction, kind of based off my own personal experience and lifestyle here to kind of influence the main character of the plot line, but it is called Shadows of Cedarville. If anyone's into the whole werewolf, dogman type lore situations, it's falls within that kind of a psychological thriller horror story. You can find it on Amazon. At some point, it'll be on Google Play Books. It might already be on there by the time this airs. I'm not 100% sure. There's also the Tinfoil Tales book from the first few interviews I did last year. It's also available on Amazon for anyone interested in that. I'm appearing at Para 5 on October 21st, which is right around the corner. Anyone out there that's in the area of Indiana and wants to come out and talk with me, I'll have my rig set up and we can sit down, have a discussion. I'll have the books there as well, so if you'd like to pick up a copy or have me sign one for you, not that I'm some big famous person or anything, but hey, whatever floats your guys' boat, it's cool with me. But I'll be out there, again, that's October 21st, Miami County 4-H Fairgrounds. So it is free, and it is all ages, so bring the family, have a good time. If you want to help the podcast, just keep sharing it around. The word of mouth's helping grow. Recently hit over 550 subscribers on just Spotify alone. I don't really have access to the other subscriptions on the other platforms. I know the YouTube's got a decent amount growing on there as well. So I appreciate all you guys for sticking out with me, helping it grow. I think the word of mouth is catching on a little bit. So it's pretty exciting. According to the analytics, there's been 115 different countries so far that have listened to an episode at least. So that is freaking awesome. Definitely humbling. And I really do, again, appreciate everyone that's at least checked out one episode or so. We're going to go ahead now and bring Linda on. Kind of interesting to hear what she's got to talk about. I've always kind of been somewhat skeptical on psychics and mediums and the stigma of that, but I also try and keep an open mind. But we're going to bring her on in now. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. I'd like to welcome my guest tonight, Linda. Thanks for coming out and talking with me.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm very excited. This is my first ever tinfoil podcast I've ever been in.
Yeah. The name, everyone hears the name and they think it's all conspiracy and stuff like that. But to be honest, I do dive into that, but I also have a lot of paranormal stuff and cryptid stuff and UFO stuff. So it kind of just, it's broad. I just come up with the name because it's typically topics that people think that the average person will write it off as someone being crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit about yourself.
My name is Linda, and I'm an intuitive tarot reader, and I'm more evidential medium versus a psychic medium. So that's what I really do. This is tarot readings and mediumship, and I also speak out about red flags, awareness about fake psychics, so overall maybe like new age spirituality, toxic ideology too as well. So I'm kind of like in between both worlds.
Yeah. I've talked to one other medium before and she asked me if I'm a believer and I said, I'm not so much a believer and I'm not so much a disbeliever. It's just I've never had any experience with it, so I don't really have an opinion one way or the other. I think people are more in tune with certain things than others, but I don't feel like I am, so I can't say someone else is when I don't know.
I understand.
But no, I know a lot of people, they're very skeptical about it, which again, I keep a skeptical approach towards everything I do anyway, just because when you dive into these sorts of topics, it is kind of one of those things like if you're straight up believe everything and everything and everything, then you really are a tinfoil hat wearer.
Exactly, exactly. That's how I am too. Like I try to be like a healthy or grounded psychic medium or whatever because nowadays people they don't like study or research or double think about what they're being taught or shown, if that makes sense. They just automatically assume it's fact when it's just opinion, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, so even like for me, I'm also skeptic of other psychics and people who want to like be into the spiritual world too. Because is this mostly there for the ego or for money? You know?
I think a lot of it, no matter where you go in any type of field, there's certain people that are legit and there's certain people that are just out for the money.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how else to say it other than that. Basically, I know like even like some of these people that are researchers and things, and they do these interviews, they do podcasts just like this one. Like I'm not monetized. I don't know if I'll ever will be. It'd
Mm-hmm.
be nice to be, I guess, maybe, but at the same time, it's like a lot of these people literally just post up all sorts of random stuff, which is completely fake crap, and they just do it for the hits and the likes and the more people to look at it, the more money they make from advertisements. And to me, that's just annoying. Like you're not really doing it because you want to do it. You're doing it just to make money off people. And I think that's some of the psychics out here too, that they claim they do this and they claim they do that. And then it's like, are you really doing it or are you just trying to swindle people?
Yeah, I agree. Because for me, I mostly offer free readings because I have free time, because I'm a stay-home mom. But when I don't have plans to offer free readings and someone contact me out of my busy day, like 4 kids earlier, then I have to adjust my schedule. Then everything had to be like readjusted, like the whole 360. So that's where I'm gonna start charging because it's taking my time away from my personal life and my kids, and as a
Mm-hmm.
wife.
No, I
So
understand
that's
that.
where I start charging.
Yeah. When did you first start noticing you had these abilities?
Um, I think when I was younger, when I saw a spirit, but I didn't really tune into it because my family they weren't really supportive of it. They were like against it. They're like, "Oh, you just kind of brush it off," kind of thing. But it was like 4 years ago where I really started tapping in or being more sensitive. I guess that makes sense to these kind of things and open to.
What was the eye opening experience? Like, how did you? He says like 4 years ago. Like, what happened that changed your perspective?
Um, funny story. I was on Facebook video chat with my friend, and she had to like get away from the camera for a bit because she had to deal with her kids. And I was just drawing and writing a piece of paper, and then like a bunch of random information was coming in. I was like, "What is this?" So I was like, "Okay, so I'm just gonna write it down and see if it resonates with her." And then as soon as she came back to the screen, I was like, "Does this mean anything to you?" She's like, "Yes." So we just kind of like went on along the lines and just kind of like explored a little bit. And it just turned out that it was her uncle that came through, giving me all those messages.
I don't know if you want to dive into what those messages were, but I've always kind of wondered like what they actually, how does someone's interpret that they're dealing with someone that they think they know? Because this is kind of a controversial aspect to it, but a lot of people think that if you're actually talking to spirits, you're not really talking to spirits, you're summoning demons. I've had
Yeah.
people I've had people that said that to me too. Like you're not going to be talking to a relative, you're going to be talking to a demon trying to manipulate what you're doing.
Yeah, this is where I say I'm more evidential versus psychic. For me, I feel like there's the two things. Like everybody can be psychic because psychic, they use I guess, your sixth senses or your quote unquote psychic abilities. But for me, I tap into the energy of your loved one who's exactly coming through. I get very in depth, very detailed. I'll talk about the personality, the clothing, the war, maybe how they pass if they want to talk about it. Private conversations, events, situations, stuff that only you can confirm and validate. So I get very, very specific and detailed. I'm not very generic. That makes sense.
Yeah. I feel like some of these people, they have a basis of how to read someone, not so much like psychically, but almost like they're able to pick up keywords, or if they ask certain questions and they figure out certain things, they know how to play on people's emotions to get something out of it. And there's some conventions and stuff that I've been to, and for whatever reading, there's like lots of these psychics there. Like they'll do readings, and they'll ask like, "Oh, you recently lost someone, haven't you?" No. And it's like, I mean, if someone says yes, and that's their doorway of coming in, I think, to keep picking at you to try and get more information so they can keep it up what they're trying to accomplish, I guess. But
Yeah.
like I said, I always try and keep an open mind, but also try and keep a little bit of a skepticism about it too, just because I know how people are, sadly.
Yeah, for me, I always encourage healthy skepticism into my readings or session because I feel like this like if as long as mutual respect there, then I can, do what I have to do. But for me, usually it just turns out that if you're like so hyper focused on proving me wrong, then you're gonna miss the messages that's trying to come through for you. Maybe some healing messages or just whatever you need to know at the moment. So that's why I said that I want my clients to be open-minded. Skepticism is welcome, but don't be an asshole about it,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and
Because
stuff.
there are people that are going to go in there straight up negative minded to where they're just going to write off everything possible. So it doesn't matter to them if it's real or not. They're automatically made up their mind that it's not real. So they're going to look for every reason they can to discredit something.
Oh yeah. Like for me, I work with my spirit team and they have no problem right out the bat telling me, no, do not get this person reading, or yes, get this person reading. So we kind of work and build that bond, as strange as it sounds. So like even just like you message me on Facebook and you say, hey, can I get a reading? Sometimes, they will step in. It's like, hey, no, do not get this person reading. And I was like, why? Because, just give me reasons why. So I try to be very, in tune and listen because I already learned my lesson, not listening to them the very hard way already. And when I didn't listen to them, it just got to a point where this person was like denying things that was coming through. That makes sense. But yet he admitted that that was their loved one coming through. But any other messages, he's like, nope, nope, nope. So, because like it was just like so draining. It's like pulling teeth. So I was like, you know what? For now, I'm just gonna set boundaries on what kind of clients I want, rather than just picking anybody who says I'm available. Because like we don't have enough time in the world to pick fights and you know be childish.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
What's some of the more interesting things that you've encountered while doing this?
Um, honestly, when after the session, some of my clients can come back to me and confirm the details or messages they weren't sure of, if that makes sense. For example, I can give a lot of examples, but for this one, um, their loved one brought up about like, trigger warning about rape and murder. And she's like, I don't know. So she came back to me the next day and she talked to her daughter. And then she said, well, her mom's brother was accused of rape. And then the uncle was accused of murder. So sometimes you have to ask outside yourself. Like sometimes it can be family members that know, you know? And so it's good to get confirmation validation that I am actually connecting to your loved one rather than just making up things. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And 2 days ago, I had this urge to watch the movie Interstellar. I was like, I never watched this movie. I heard about it, but like it was just there. It was like nagging at me. And I was like, why do I have to watch this movie? Why is it in my mind? So I just caved in. I was like, oh, fuck it. I'm sorry. Excuse me. I was like, okay, well, screw it. I just watch it, see if there's any meanings or messages for me. And then, so I was like, you know what? After the movie's done, I was like, I gotta reach out to my client that I did a previous session for. And then I was like, you know what? Hey, let's catch up sometimes. And she's like, yeah. So fast forward to last night, I told her, but like, I had this nagging feeling to watch Interstellar. She's like, oh my God, that's my husband and his brother. They used to watch movies together, Interstellar. Like it was a common movie that they actually loved. That makes sense. And really use that time to bond with each other. That makes sense. So sometimes your loved ones, they will come to me, I guess, if they want more confirmation. That makes sense. So it's really, I don't know, just fun. It's amazing how spirit works in both ways. If they want you to connect with their loved ones, too, you know?
Yeah. It's weird how certain things like that can be all interconnected. There's all sorts of ideas that I have that I don't really want to dive into because they're out there. But I think, and I've mentioned this on several episodes, I think there's more to our reality than what we know of. I think there's like a veil, there's a spirit realm or a type of there's something we can't physically see all the time. And I think that's what a lot of these spirits or even these cryptid things that we see or whatever that people talk about, I don't think they're from our world, but I think they come into our world somehow. I don't know if it's like a portal spirit opening or something, but I feel like things like when you're contacting something from the other side, some of these things that we're seeing and people are seeing are from the other side as well. If that makes sense.
Yeah. That's what I wonder about that too, because sometimes when I ask questions about how the spirit world is, I get shut down immediately. They're like, nope. And I understand why, because sometimes if, certain information falls into the wrong hands, then something can happen. So I understand. But then, it's just like, for me yesterday, I was like, is it like maybe like a mirror, like there's a mirror out there and then your world and then our world and the spirit world. And they're like, no. So like it says is even if I try to like ask questions to kind of go around it or kind of be sneaky about it, they still shut me down. So I understand. So I'm just like, what, I'm not gonna ask anymore. Just gonna do what I gotta do and go on, move on my life.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, is this like I said, this is where I'm a skeptic too, where everybody claims to know the spirit world or how it works. And I was like, no, it's not a fact because there's no solid evidence out there. The only evidence you have is your version and your reality. If that makes sense. So
Mm-hmm.
don't make your experience in your version and your reality a fact when it's not, kind of thing.
And there's really no way of scientifically proving it anyways.
Mhm.
They come up with their own opinions and say this is how it is, but at the same time it's like there's no real physical evidence to prove one way or the other that this is true. It's just based off of what someone's feeling and saying. So
Mhm.
it's hard to take everything 100% truthful when it's up for interpretation from that person.
Oh yeah, even like people they say astral projection, astral traveling, it's like don't make it as a fact because again, it's your version, your reality, and sometimes your own biased views can get in the way of what's I guess quote unquote actually true or what's out there. That makes sense, you know.
Yeah.
So I speak out against things as people trying to make it as a fact too.
You mentioned astral projection. Is that something that you really think's true, or have you dealt with anything like that? Because I've actually been reached out by a couple people. I think I might have them on some future episodes. I'm not sure, but they do out of body experiences, they say, and they astral project things. And I was like, I don't really know a whole lot about that. So it's kind of piqued my interest.
For me, I personally never experienced it because I guess I'm not privileged enough to experience that or have that kind of experience. But I don't question why I don't, but maybe because I'm not ready or there are certain steps I need to take or do in order to achieve that state or level, if that makes sense. But for me, I think it's for me, astral traveling is kind of you go into your dream world, just kind of, walking around and doing one, but astral project is like where you specifically trying to project to yourself in one specific place or environment or whatever, if that makes sense for me. That's what I think. But like I said, I'm not trying to say it's fact, but it's just what resonates with me.
Yeah. I've actually some of my recent episodes, and this is another one of those conspiracy tinfoil hat things, but they think that people with abilities like yours and others are actually targeted by certain agencies and certain entities and stuff like that. And a lot of the things that they're, again, it kind of goes back to almost demonic to an extent, but it's not that. They think there's like some sort of higher intelligence. I don't know if you want to call them aliens or what actually it could be, but they think you're communicating with even higher beings than what we are when you have that ability to tap into that psychic realm.
For me, I can definitely see us like people who are legit psychics. I guess I can say quote unquote legit. I can definitely see us being targeted because the government can see us as a threat. If that makes sense, especially if the CIA has released documents about how they use remote viewing and using psychics too. So it doesn't surprise me, and I do believe that maybe we are targeted, but we're just being watched. If that makes sense,
Yeah.
because they have access to our phones, our technologies, electronics, so it don't surprise me. But the demonics, you have to really, well, not people in general, really have to have a strong level of discernment and intuition, and again, that trust and bond with your spirit team or whoever you work with, because for me, I feel like it's very rare to encounter, I guess what you can say, demonics. Because demonics for me is different versus just parasitic, parasites beings. So that makes sense. Parasites that just kind of leech onto you and drain you, where demonics is just they don't really care unless you disrespect them. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just based on my experience. And this Hollywood has made it so fear mongering. So I don't really talk about demonics because it's just people are like, oh, you love the demonics. Oh, you love them. You support them. I was like, no, I don't. I'm just trying to base it off my experience. And you guys can take whatever you guys want with that information or message I have to say. But like I said, the Ouija board and stuff like that, obviously it's already in your environment, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because it's already there. So there's no need to say, oh, I, invited in, but you didn't really invite it in. It's right there in your space.
Yeah. There's a lot of
Mhm.
things that and I don't know how familiar you are with some of the things we talk about, but there are certain creatures that people see that we've encountered and stuff like that. And just to throw a couple out there, like what obviously Sasquatch, Bigfoot is or whatever, people claim that they are spoken to by that thing through their mind, like some kind of psychic way of mind speak. And there's other weird creatures or whatever they claim they've encountered and it talks to them telepathically and they've seen one at a window and I'll tell them to open the door, let it in, invite it in. And so to me, that doesn't sound like a creature like that. To me, it almost sounds like a demonic type of presence who's just wanting you to invite it in. Like,
Mhm.
why would this big 7 foot tall monstrous looking creature decide knock on your door and tell you to let it in? Like it would just come smash through your door.
Exactly. I agree with that statement for sure. Yeah, I agree. Um, but there's a lot of like conspiracy theories on TikTok saying like these mythical creatures like the Loch Ness, the unicorns, these mythical creatures they were here before the humans were, and then I guess humans did something messed up to ruin that opportunity. So now it's kind of like the gods stepped in and kind of like draw boundaries and be like, hey, we need to separate these worlds together. And for my culture, we talked about like where there's a little legend going on, but like the humans they kind of messed up. So the gods put something over each and every human's third eye so we can't see them as clear as that we used to, especially in the Bible days when they talk about seeing spirits so clearly. Like I said, it's just a legend, it's not I don't want to assume it's like it's true or not, but it's just very interesting to read and hear that too.
Yeah. There's been all sorts of depictions in all sorts of different ancient texts. And obviously, like with Native Americans, there was cave paintings of certain things. And even in Egypt and all sorts of stuff, like in the pyramids, they've had all these weird creature gods like Anubis or whatever, which is basically like the dog man thing that people encounter. There's all sorts of stuff that they all have these weird abilities too, which is again a lot of it's that whole mind speak and telepathic powers, and some blend in and out, they just disappear. That's what I was saying a little bit ago about it's almost like there's a veil or something that to a different reality, like spirit realm or something, somewhere where these things, if people are actually seeing them, they can come in and out of almost like the spirit world. Like people, obviously, like you can tap into that side. It's almost like these things have the ability to tap in to come into our side.
Mm, yeah,
Which again, I don't know anything about that side. Never experienced it. I've seen some weird stuff, but doesn't mean I know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm just
exactly. Same here.
I'm just a
Sorry.
guy with a microphone. It's fine.
Yeah, for me, personally, I'm not the type of person to really put myself out there to have those kind of paranormal experiences because I know better, you know, especially when I have family and loved ones. I don't want to put them that kind of risk. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's kind of
I
how
mean,
I
like,
am too.
yeah, for me, I like to, excuse my language, I like to fuck around, find out too, but at the same time, I'm not that stupid, you know.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand what you're saying. Like basically, and I've said this before, I don't go out looking for things because I don't want things coming back with me.
Hmm.
So I know not to go and kick the hornet's nest because I personally don't like bees, so I don't mess with them.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's how it is. And even doing this podcast, I feel like I bring some things around that I wish I wouldn't, but at the same time, it's part of it, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's just because, like, whoever is like more open-minded or a skeptic just a little bit is kind of like little like the poke at you that makes sense, like, hey, we're here and we know you're a little bit more open-minded than others, so that's what I feel like, to just poke fun at you. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
I get a little paranoid because my kids and everything like that, I'm afraid that something that I'm going to do is going to impact something to them. I don't, like I said, I don't want to bring something back to the house or open up some sort of doorway for something to follow me in or come in or whatever. Like that's just my paranoid parent kicking in, but that's just how I feel. Like I'm not going to go out on some of these paranormal investigations or whatever because that's just not what I am about. I used to look into stuff like that, but now that I'm older and have a family and all that stuff, I was like, no, it's not worth it.
Yeah, I 100% agree what you said, because with me, obviously something about me that makes spirits know I'm more able to connect with them, more open. But for me, it's just, you know, like, not trying to like put you down, but for me, it's just like it's unavoidable, because even my son goes to school. My son, he's 8 years old. He's the most sensitive one of all my kids, and he's gonna be a medium like me. He attracts spirits because spirits know he sees them, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, like, for me, they follow him, I don't follow him. It just depends. But my son, he does report these things back to me. He does. He's very open about it, but I don't try to shut him out of it too. I just try to ease him and just kind of let him, say, hey, maybe just, make your boundaries, ignore it, let me know what's going on. It just depends on the situation, the case. But if, like, they really do bother him, I will step in and say something to them, because I do have the ability to communicate with them too, and
I, f-
stuff. So, like I said, I'm not trying to put you down on things, but it's like sometimes it's just unavoidable, and it really sucks. And I know that feeling of, like, you fail to protect your kids from these spirits, because spirits, they have free will. They want to do what the fuck they want to do. I'm sorry for my language, but they want to do what they want to do. They sometimes they lack, respect or boundaries and stuff like that. It's just, again, it depends. Like you mean said earlier too, it just depends if you provoke them or not.
no, no, I think that I agree with what you're saying. But I just, like I said, if I can try and avoid it, that's what I try to do.
Yeah. But for me, I noticed that in my experience, um using smoke cleansing like herbs or just using smoke, incense, whatever, it doesn't necessarily make them leave, if that makes sense. It probably make them go away for a little bit, but they may come back. If that makes sense. But that's why sometimes you hear stories that you had to negotiate with the spirit, see what they want, you know. But for me, as much I love and respect spirits, for me, I have to set my boundaries too because my kids are still young, and I want them to have an experience as a kid, not being a medium like me, you know. So sometimes when I do step in, for example, like a month ago, we had this spirit who's attached to this land. And so I didn't know that. And then until my son told me, he's like, yeah, she died here. And he just went very details about it. Like he knew. It was scary. But you know what? I said, he told myself, like, I'm not going to put my son down. I'm going to listen what he has to say and see maybe we can work this out together on what the spirit wants. And it just turns out that they were previous owners of this land before everything came in, and the daughter and the mother, they were killed by the hands of their father. And so they kind of like they didn't necessarily want to cross over, but move on, if that makes sense. So they have attachment to this land. And so the little girl was playing with my son, but in a way that she didn't know how to interact with him, if that makes sense. And so he keeps telling me, like, she keeps making scary faces, she keeps following him, stuff like that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to step in and see what she wants. And so, I couldn't really do it. So I had to bring in a friend who's a medium too to help me out. And then, so the little girl, obviously, people, if they don't know or not know, but your loved ones or spirits, they all have their own personality. They're not all love and light. So I actually managed to have this mom come through, and I told her in a mean way as possible to let her know that we need to coexist peacefully. And I told her that either two, she needs to pay rent, find some money, or leave us the fuck alone because we're not bothering them at all. Besides living in their property, you know. So like I hate being mean to them, but you have to really be stern and firm in your boundaries because you don't, they're gonna overstep it.
When we
So
first
yeah.
moved into our house, and I've told this, I think, a couple times, so I don't really want to jump into it. But the short version is when we first moved in, my daughter ended up getting 3 scratch marks on her back. And like the couple days prior, through the baby monitor, we heard a voice that said mine, a man's voice. And so she started sleeping in bed with us, but she had these 3 big scratch marks down her back, and they're really wide. And with it being 3, me being the person I am, I got all paranoid because that's kind of a mocking of the Holy Trinity. So I went through the house, I threatened whatever it was and banished it, and we've really had no issues since then. But the house, there's never been anyone that I'm aware of that's ever died. It's not that old of a house. It's only about 40 years old.
Mhm.
And we've, like I said, never had any issues before. So it's strange that there was something, or at least what I think was something. But again, that was 3 years ago. We've had no issues since. But it's just weird to me that things can target children. That's what I even said. I was like, if you want to target something, come after me. Leave my baby alone. Like she's not even 2 years old. Like
Yeah.
it's so.
I, yeah, like I'm so sorry you guys went through that, and I cannot imagine the horror and everything you guys went through. It's I don't know what to say, but I'm so sorry. Like I bet it's very traumatic. And it's just for me, like sometimes, I notice that sometimes it can be the land or the house, you know. So it's for me, I think it's weird, but it makes sense too because the land was here before the house was built, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I can kind of see why at the same time, but it's like I don't like try to assume. I just like, okay, where you come from? Where did I go that made you follow me or made my kids, being followed? But I won't exactly know why, but best we can do, just like you said, Spanish. Maybe if we can, depending on the case, try to coexist, everything like that. But for me, like I said, I don't know. It's weird how spirits can just, you know, have their own free will and do that. I guess maybe because they don't run on human moral codes. I guess that makes sense.
I feel like it also just there's bad people, not just so imagine there's bad people, there's bad spirits as well. Like so you don't really know what you're dealing with. Like I
Hmm.
don't someone might have been the greatest person ever and then the spirit realm doesn't mean they're going to be the same greatest person that they used to be. Things change. I would assume that being a spirit can be different than being a human.
Yeah, I want to agree with that statement too. But at the same time, like I heard people say, like, spirits, the spirit world, they have their own laws and the rules they have to follow. But like, who knows if that's exactly true? But I can kind of see why they have these quote unquote laws and rules to follow. Because if you notice, like most of the, I guess, good spirits or the level light ones, they respect your boundaries and your free will, you know. But like I said, maybe, just take everything with a grain of salt and not assume everything is fact, like I said earlier too.
I guess my biggest hang up on the spirit worlds and a lot of this goes into people with religion and stuff like that as well. I know like everyone that has some sort of religion, like you die, you go to a better place or you go to a bad place or whatever. So what exactly is the spirit realm? Like that's where I get hung up on. Like it's weird to think of it that way, but like just use the Christianity thing. Oh, you're a good person, you go to heaven. Oh, if you're a bad person, you go to hell. Well, where do these spirits, these ghosts, these things that you're communicating with, from what part are they coming from? It doesn't add up that you're able to talk to someone that's in hell or in heaven. So there's got to be something that's like a purgatory. Like it's strange.
Oh yeah, I agree too. Because for me, when I step into spirituality, I have to do a lot of deconstruction, especially the Christian views, because they make like possession to be very scary. I mean, which I understand it is scary, but when you like, mediumship is a low level of possession, if you guys didn't know, because you are entering a trance state of mind. So that's how you're able to connect with spirits. Channeling is another level above mediumship or another possession, I guess you can say level. And it is where like full body takeover where spirits, enter your body, but you're still aware, but your dialect, your body language, your mood, it changes, you know? And then there's a full blown possession where you have absolutely no control, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
like so this is like stages from my experience that I see. And I just the spell road it really is an interesting thing. Like I said earlier, I tried asking about it, but I got shut down immediately. And so, you know, because like I'm not sure if you guys heard, but they say that, when you go away, you get like maybe like a 5 minute preview of your life, like review.
Yeah.
And so like maybe there's some good or bad reviews that you do. And I feel like for me, like all the bad things you've done in life is what I consider hell. Because it's like right there in your face, like, oh, you did this, you did a bad thing, blah, blah, blah. So I guess that's what I consider hell. Because all the bad things is being brought up in your face. And that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's what I just personally believe in.
I don't really I don't know what to call myself. Like I'm not atheist and I'm not really I don't really abide to, I guess, religion. I just think if
Hmm.
you're I think being a good person, you just be a good person. Like I don't necessarily feel like I have to worship some sort of God because someone wrote a book and told me I had to.
Yeah, I agree. But like speaking of God, that's also a Christian mindset too, where um we heard about these deities like different pantheons, like the Norse, the Greek, the Celtics, the Greeks and Romans. Um, it's because like according to them, their gods, they don't get angry or upset if you forget to worship them or give them your full attention. That makes sense. If you have to take a break, they'll understand. They're not get mad like the Christian God does, if that makes sense. So for me, when I came into this, I had this Christian mindset, even though I didn't grow up Christian. And so it's like, okay, so I tried to worship one um goddess. I'm still currently worshiping her. And it was still the fear of like, what if I don't, give her an offering every day? Or what if I don't like make time for her or set out water for her or, just show her or tell her I appreciate her or just think of her, just like the thoughts that count. And she get mad at me. And then I was like, you know what? No, that's the Christian mindset of God being angry at me if I don't, I guess you can say, put him before myself, if that makes sense. And honestly, in my experience, I always tell this goddess that if I give an offering that you don't like, please let me know. And so I set like a very specific sign from her to let me know she likes it or she doesn't like it. And sometimes I do receive these signs, but maybe sometimes I don't because I miss it. But like I said, it's so awesome and mind blowing how these gods and goddesses actually do talk back rather than the Christian God. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's even brought up in the Bible. It's one of the commandments not to worship any false gods or whatever. And I've always wondered why God would be so, I wouldn't want to say egotistical, but like you can only have me, almost like selfish to itself. Like it wants to be praised. To me, that whole concept just seems odd to me.
Yeah, because like when you brought up about like do not worship other gods before me, that would set me off or trigger me. Like, okay, so is this God acknowledging that there is other gods out there
Mm-hmm.
and they're just being selfish? So I was like, so that kind of made me like delve into other gods from other pantheons or cultures. So, you
Yeah.
know,
No,
it's really interesting.
I completely agree with that too. I think that and again, maybe if you talk to someone that's a Bible person that knows more about it than I do, but I just think that the Bible's been wrote by a man, by different men. It's been translated to fit whatever narratives they wanted it to. And that could be not just Christianity, but I think a lot of religions the same way. Like religion to me was always a way of control. They wanted someone to do what they wanted to do. You got to do this. This is the way you're supposed to be. You don't offend your God. And that's how they got people to fall in line.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree with that statement too. Is this? It's very weird because, like, for me, the Bible, from what I saw on TikTok, again, like I said, I try to take everything with a grain of salt. That the Bible is taking parts from other countries' Bible too. If that makes sense. Like the Jewish or the Hinduism Bible is also being put in the Christian Bible too. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I can kind of see where the Christian Bible kind of takes other stories from other Bibles and just kind of twist it in their own view, I guess. It makes sense and everything.
Yeah. Basically, I think the Jewish Bible would be just the Old Testament. The New Testament's where they mention Jesus and everything else, and I don't think anything like that was included. That's why there's the Old Testament and the New Testament. I think that's what separates the Judaism and Christianity. And then
Yeah.
I honestly think like the Muslim religion too, that is very similar to Christianity and Judaism. Like obviously they have their own versions to it, but all the religions to me, they're all very similar. At least
Mm.
at least those were. Like there's certain elements that had certain stories. Every religion had the flood story. I feel like, okay, I won't say every religion, but a lot of them, they have the flood stories. They have a lot of similar stories and people from it and whatever else. So there's just a lot that goes on from different religions that makes you wonder. Is like, well, clearly something happened because all these different people from all over the world have the same similar stories going on.
Yeah. Let's see. If you remember the Bible where they talk about see, Lucifer, where he rebelled against the one, I think they're talking about the king of Babylon, where he was called Lucifer because he rebelled. He was an adversary where he's just like negative, and so people are talking about like they want to see his kingdom kind of fall because he was bad, quote unquote, in their eyes. If that makes sense. And so I just feel like sometimes like Latin or just other languages that's not English, it can get mistranslated.
Mm-hmm.
And so like what's that book called? The Book of Lost Paradise. It talks about Lucifer, but not the fallen angel, not a being, but a man. Because Lucifer means like, adversary, rebel, stuff like that. And so I just feel like the book, Lost Paradise, they kind of, the Bible kind of just took it from that book and put it the own version saying Lucifer is an angel or entity and stuff like that. When really Lucifer, it's a title assigned to someone. If that makes sense, like a king.
My thing with the fallen angels and all that stuff, and this is where I go, like, why I start to question things.
Hmm.
If the so-called God is the all-seeing, knows everything that you're going to do before you do it, but gives you free will. So technically, is that really free will if he already knows what you're going to do? And he created everything. He had to have created these angels, so he knew they're going to rebel against him. So why did he create them, knowing that they're going to be evil and the evil Lord of Hell and all this? Like none of that makes sense to me. Like, what was the point? Oh, this is God. So you're going to live on this planet, and I know what you're going to do if you're going to be good or bad, but you're either going to come live with me in eternity in heaven or you're going to be bad and go to hell. But I already know what you're going to do because I know every decision you're going to make before you ever make it. But you have free
Yeah,
will. None of
yeah,
that
that
makes
kind
any
of
sense.
it kind of plays along with the Book of Enoch too, and the Book of Tobit too.
I don't know much about the Book of Tobit. I know a little bit about Enoch. I know Enoch talked about fallen angels and Nephilim and like giants and stuff like that. Like, kind of gets
Yeah,
into some of the things I've talked about on other episodes. But what about the Book of Tobit? I haven't really heard much about that one.
yeah. I haven't really read much about the Book of Enoch and the Book of Tobit, but I do plan when I do have time because it's like I don't know, it's very different, you know. So I like to, get little bit more knowledge rather than just being comfortable with the knowledge I have now, you know.
I don't know what I know. They found like different, like the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they found different things. And I don't know what the point was of why certain books were not included in the Bible and certain ones were. Obviously, I wasn't there to decide which ones were put in or not, so I can't really say one way or the other. But again, these were all stories wrote by men.
Yeah,
And yes, they're ancient text, but a lot of people write fiction today. What makes people think that they weren't just writing what they were writing back then too is something to write about. I mean, it's strange to think of it that way, but at the same time, like, what else am I supposed to think when I look at it from that perspective of anyone can make things up? So who's to say people didn't make this up years ago and now we're taking it all as fact just
yeah. It's,
because these ancient people said so?
yeah, it's like with Lilith too. Like they didn't include Lilith, like Adam's first wife, into the Bible, but until I guess Lilith was talked about in the Red Dead Sea Scrolls too. I think a little bit. So it's like, are you like I agree with you. So like, why did it take certain texts or context out of the
Yeah.
Bible and
Yeah.
stuff like that?
Because then Lilith was supposed to be evil.
Hmm.
So then they made Eve, but then Christianity completely removed any reference to Lilith, and
Yeah,
then they replaced the evilness with the snake and the biting of the apple for free will. Like it's strange to me, I guess. Like why would that be completely washed out? Like it doesn't fit the narrative.
exactly. And then, when you dabble into witchcraft, people talk about Lilith, and I was like, which Lilith? The Christian Lilith, where she rebelled against Adam, or the Kabbalah Lilith, where she's an incubus and she preys on men, and she's literally what they call it, a murderer. She kills men and babies. She give women miscarriages and abortions. Like she's literally a demon. So
Yeah.
it's just like people say, "Oh, Lilith is open. You can work with Lilith," and they're like, "No, Lilith is closed because she's from Hinduism, or Jewish. You can't work with them." So that's why it's like, what, dabbling into witchcraft and stuff like that is just so, I don't know, it's so unorganized, you know,
I think,
because like,
and I don't want to
go
say
on.
this like I know, but I thought I'd read somewhere before that someone had claimed that Lilith was like the first demon, like the demon queen or something. I was like, well, wasn't Satan like a fallen angel that's supposed to be the king of hell? Like, what is it? What was the snake? Who was the snake? Like,
I think they say, I, Isaiah, is that, but
Azazel?
Azazel?
Azazel.
Azazel, yeah, the fallen angel, part of the Watchers. He made it with Lilith, and then this Queen Nama, and then other well, the four prostitutes, which is the four demons, like Lilith and them. And so is this like, okay, maybe is this people like making up stories in their head, being imaginative, and then all of a sudden they want to make it as fact. That makes sense?
I've always kind of questioned Adam and Eve had Cain and Abel, and Cain killed Abel. And
Mm-hmm.
like, how did humanity keep going?
Yeah.
Like, there had to have been more. And then you got the story of the flood and Noah's Ark, and Noah kept all the animals, and then he kept his family. So, and wiped out all the other people. So they had to start again. It's it, I'm like, okay, so basically everyone came from the same couple of people twice.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't explain how everyone's spread across the world, and you can see it like archived through like the bones and stuff, like thousands of years. So how many years ago was Adam and Eve? How many years ago was the flood? Like who knows?
Yeah. Like, I'm not sure if you heard about like, the lesser and greater key of Solomon, because Solomon is mentioned in the Bible. And basically the lesser and greater key of Solomon, where he has these demons, like the 72 demons and the seven princes or kings of hell, stuff like that. Um, it kind of goes where the book of Tobit, where Archangel Raphael came in and helped save Sarah from King Asmodeus. Or, he's a demon of lust and wrath, and the demon was so obsessed with Sarah, where he killed all of the seven of her husbands until Archangel Raphael came in and helped Tobit to defeat this demon, you know? So is this like, there's a term in witchcraft where it's called egregore, servitor, and Peluto, whatever it is. And egregore is just basically like a thought form, like Santa Claus is a egregore. Because there's so much energy and thought put into it that Santa Claus is egregore, you know? And then a servitor is where you kind of create your own spirit based off your energy to kind of help serve you, if that makes sense. And so it just makes me wonder if all these gods and spirits are egregores because we put so much energy and thought into it, and they just basically come to life. That makes sense?
Basically, all the energy and thought process put into these things manifest into reality.
Mm-hmm. So it makes me wonder if the Christian God is an egregore along with these Greek gods, you know, other gods from other pantheons or egregores, you know.
Mm-hmm. I
So it's a
kind
very interesting theory.
It kind of makes a little sense too, and I've heard this in other aspects too, not so much just with gods, but other like entities and other things. Like people channel it so much and they put so much energy into it that they manifest it somehow. Like, and
Hmm.
I don't know how that's possible, but again, I've got some woo woo theories out there that would make it a little more sense to me, but that's another topic in general. But basically, if we have the ability to manifest things by our own energy, it's almost to me like we have a lot more power that we're just not able to tap into.
Yep. And that's what people said. The government does not want you to eat healthy or all these stuff because you have the power of magic within you, you know, and stuff. So it's just like it's really interesting. It's like a rabbit hole after a rabbit hole. And for me, that's why I said that it's very important to people who wants to like welcome spirituality in their life. You have to be very, again, like I said earlier, you have to have a good level of discernment, intuition, and depending on the case, your psychic abilities too, and who you look up to, for information, stuff like that. Because spirituality is not a joke. That's why we have these reborn Christians again. Like, I'm not trying to be mean, but it's true. Like you see over the internet where it's, oh, I dabbled in tarot, and then now I'm a reborn Christian because I was talking to a demon through tarot cards and stuff like that. And so it's like, well, because you've ever around and found out, and you didn't study, you didn't do your research, you didn't question what you're being, seeing or hearing. You just blindly follow it and trust it. So it's definitely not for the weak, especially when you have to go through a lot of ego death and deconstruction. That's just my opinion.
I don't know a whole lot about other religions or whatever, but are there still like obviously hell's more of a Christianity thing? Is there like another version of hell in some other religions where and because well, how do they explain demons to other people? Like I said, I don't know like the whole Muslim religion if they have hell and demons in there. I don't know if it's just strictly a Christianity thing based off that, but I don't know how that works.
I think Greek, they talk about the underworld like Hades.
Yeah.
I think that's what they consider hell is the underworld and stuff. But I can't speak to other religions or cultures because I don't really delve in much into it. But besides the Greek, a little bit.
Next, I
And so,
know
like I said, huh?
I would say like Norse mythology. I know they had obviously Thor and Odin and stuff like that were gods, but I don't know what their underworld would have been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But no, there's all sorts of things from. I always thought it was strange that no matter where we're at in the world, all the ancient people had their own gods. What made them all worship something? Like where'd they all come
Yeah.
up with the same idea that something was in control? And that's where everyone's like, well, obviously there was a god because they all across the planet they were talking about gods. Or they just that's just how people evolved, I guess, thinking that there was something more than just us.
Yeah. I questioned that too. I was like early in the life, human years, like how do I know these beings existed? Maybe do these beings come to them, interact with them, or talk to them like the ETs or the aliens? You know? So it's just like a lot of like questioning and everything. So it's just like I don't know, it's just more rabbit hole for me to go down.
Yeah. I almost to believe in that makes more sense and plausibility than the whole God theory. Like if you just say that what we worshipped as gods were actually beings from a higher intelligence, from a higher reality or a higher different planet, I don't know. But they came in and
Mhm.
helped shape humanity. It would make sense that they were considered gods, and that would make sense as to why each one has their own version of it because who's to say what they actually encountered and they're interpreted it completely differently than what someone else did.
Yeah.
But I've always thought it was strange that thousands of years ago they started building pyramids in Egypt, and then they also were building pyramids in South America, and they're building pyramids somewhere else, like all over the world. They were building pyramids. Well, what gave them the idea to build pyramids when they're spread out thousands of miles apart?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I like that too. 'Cause like, it's just like how like let's for example, let's use Aphrodite. She's a Greek goddess of love, And then there's Venus. She's a Roman goddess of love. And then Freya, she's a Norse goddess of love too. So it just makes me feel like, do they, example, does the Roman people thought, okay, cool, since the Greek are worshiping this Aphrodite, we can give it a different name, meaning Venus. And same thing for the Norse. It's like they kind of like got like each other's ideas, copy off each other, but give it different names. So
Hmm.
it's just like a really interesting theory, and stuff.
I know there's different, and I would have to look them all up, but the whole story of the death of Christ or whatever from the humanity side or Christianity side, I mean, there was other thing like Horus and Osiris. Like if you start looking into all these things, they're all very, very similar. There's all sorts of different gods that had the same stories, and it all goes back to almost, I don't want to say it's all the same, but it's very, very similar. Like they have Jesus in this one, they had Horus and Osiris and all the other ones. I'd have to go back and look it up, but there was a movie that came out when I was controversial, but that whole Zeitgeist movie that came out in like 2006 or something, and it literally broke it all down for people of the greatest story ever told, and it broke down like how all the religions were basically built off the same thing, and it was all about the sun. The sun rose and died, and basically it's the winter solstice and everything else. Like to me, that made a whole lot of sense because it shows all these different names to these old gods and the son of God and all this other things, and it all added up. I was like, huh, never seen that before. But again, that could be 100% wrong, and whatever I watched was complete bullshit. But it made it made more sense than what I've been known to look into, I guess.
Yeah, same here too. That's why I was like, I'm just tired of digging into this rabbit hole. I'm just gonna stick to what I know, you know. But like, questions that people have for me that I can't really necessarily answer, especially, I think it's concerning just things from the close practices. If that makes sense. They just because I'm Asian, they assume I know close practices. And so I was like, I can't really help you with that because it's one close practice. Try speaking to the people from that practice or that culture to know more about it, especially like voodoo. And I was like, no, I'm not voodoo. Asian people are more associated with shamanism. That makes sense. But
Mm-hmm.
like for me, in my culture, in order to be a shaman, you have to be chosen by the spirits. And apparently I'm not blessed enough or privileged to be a shaman. But but like I said, I would never ever trade, being a psychic medium for a shaman because I realized that being a shaman, that's a lot more to go into it than just what I'm doing now or being medium, just communicating with them. That makes sense. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But each shaman, they had their own different duties and responsibilities. So like so I can't say the same for Native American shaman, but I can say for my shaman, for my culture, you know, it's very complicated. And so that's why you see shamans they wear like colored veils or just something to cover their face, you know. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. So when you go to the spirit world, the spirit doesn't recognize your face or they don't follow you home. So they kind of get lost and like, who's this person behind the veil kind of thing? It's kind of like a disguise or mask kind of thing.
That makes sense.
Hmm.
No, I don't
So
know a
yeah.
whole lot about shamanism or anything like that. Like, I'm not a very big avid researcher on certain things. Like I'll watch documentaries, I might read some stuff here and there, but there's so many rabbit holes that go down, and most of mine are I keep more or less with the whole cryptids and the conspiracy realms more so than the godly spirit realms, just because I don't want to I don't want to say that I'm against it all or I'm skeptical against it all, but I'd rather just not know. Like I'd rather be naive about it, I guess.
Yeah, especially like the most popular ones, like the skinwalkers or whoever else along the lines of like the Native American stuff like that. It's or the Wendigos, stuff like that. Is this like I don't know, like I said, I agree. Is this I prefer to focus on them too, but it goes back to history, where they come from, the origins.
Yeah, I've actually
So that's
got some episodes out about Skinwalker and Wendigos and stuff like that too. So that's stuff that I usually dive into.
yeah, for me, from what I've read, I could be wrong, but correct me if you know. But skinwalkers is originally from like the Navajo tribe, right? Like they cursed this tribe or something over land. And so that's how the skinwalker came to be.
I don't know how the origins of it, but it is Navajo, and I thought someone had to kill one of their relatives to take the form of the animals they also kill to take that animal form. And it's basically a person that's able to manifest themselves into the animals that they slay. But in order to become the skinwalker, they must kill someone within their family. They have to be a murderer.
Yeah, it's just so many like stories and myths and legends about skinwalkers and wendigos, stuff like that. But was it this popular creator of the SCPs? One like Long Horse or something? He's a
I'm not.
very his monsters is very popular, like Long Horse, um the one who created Siren Head, that creator.
Oh, I don't know who it is, but I know Siren Head. That's all. These
Yeah,
are all
his
like
monsters.
they're like creepy pasta things.
Yeah, the creepypasta things. So I was like, so I wonder if like the creator who does like Siren Head, stuff like that, is kind of originated off like you know, culture things too, kind of thing.
Yeah, there's been a lot of. It's strange. I uh I try and look into these weird sightings and humanoids and creatures and stuff like that. And there's some really, really out there things like the whole siren head thing obviously isn't real. The rake was made up from creepypasta. There's also like Slender Man was made up from creepypasta. Now
Yeah.
all these people see these things all the time. Their reports, oh, I saw this, I saw this, I saw this. Well, if you go back and look, it was literally like made up on the internet. So it's
Yeah.
strange that people are seeing something that was made up. Again, it kind of goes back to what we said a little bit ago. Are people seeing this thing because so many people made it up and talked about it that we manifest this thing into reality?
Mm, yeah, because it just kind of goes back to what I said earlier about egregores, because we put so much energy and thought to it, it just kind of comes to life.
Yeah, that's kind of what I
And
was
so
thinking. I've yet to see Siren Head, but if I do, I'll make sure to run.
I don't know, maybe to save here or any of his like creepypastas, creatures and stuff like that. But
I think we can wrap this up about now. We've talked with quite a bit of little things here and there, and I try and keep my episodes around an hour. So,
okay,
but
okay.
no, I do appreciate you coming on here and talking with me tonight.
I appreciate you too, and thank you for having me in. But before we go, is there any questions you want to ask me, or you're okay with what we discussed so far?
I'm okay with what we discussed so far. I do have a couple questions though for what has been told to me that I should ask, and I guess the number one thing about people that think of psychics is they can predict the future, which I don't think is actual true. But
Hmm.
everyone wants to know how come psychics can't win the lottery? Like that's always the number one question that people always ask is how come they don't ever see psychics winning the lottery because they can't predict the future. I was like, I don't think they're not they're fortune tellers. They know what's going to happen in your life, but they can't predict the future for their own self.
I think that if we're able to predict the lottery number, everybody is going to misuse the psychics. And that's where, like you said earlier, psychics are going to be targeted
Yeah.
and stuff. But like I said, who knows? Maybe there is a psychic out there who can predict lottery numbers, but maybe, like I said, I don't know. And for the future, for me, I quote unquote kind of predict the future, but I tell them that you have your own free will because it changes the outcome. But the only times it's considered a future or an accurate future is when you follow the suggested path. So, for example, if you come to me and said, should I quit my job and just kind of take it down a notch and just relax? And my suggestion is like, yes, just take it down a notch, relax, regather your thoughts, whatever you gotta do. And I do tell you that, you don't have to do this suggested path, but you can. And then after our session is done, it's up to you, whatever you want to do with the information or message you receive from me. And let's say if you do quit your job, and then your friend message you saying, hey, I got this job for you. Do you want to take it? Do you want to come in and do it? And then that's where the future predicting parts messes up because you didn't listen to what I quote unquote suggest. You took another path. Again, your free will.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. So that's why I tell people to watch out for psychics who claims they can predict the future. I mean, yes, they can, but only if you take the suggested path or route.
Yeah. I think again, that's always been the thing that I've always heard people say is how to discredit the psychics and everything else is, well, if these people can really do all that, you'd think they'd win the lottery, or they'd tell someone how to win the lottery. I was like, I don't think it works that way.
I
But
wish it worked that way because I'd be rich right now too.
yeah, that's the running gag is psychics aren't real because they'd all be hitting the lottery all the time.
Exactly.
But no, other than that, I don't really have anything standing out that I can think of off the top of my head. Like I said, I think we discussed quite a bit of things, more than I actually expected to talk about. So I, I never know what to expect when I interview people. So I always kind of come in just to see how it goes. And sometimes it goes off the rails and sometimes it stays focused. So this was a pretty focused one. So I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you for allowing me in to be in your podcast and everything. Like, I really appreciate it because we met each other off Reddit, remember? And I got banned from Reddit because psychics are frowned upon on that group. But like I said, I'm so glad you gave me the opportunity to be in your podcast to kind of allow and show you that I'm a real person. If that makes sense.
You're the first person I've interviewed off of Reddit. So,
Okay,
no,
well,
well, I have to take that back. I just had an interview on Saturday or Sunday, and it wasn't an interview. I was on their podcast, and we did like a simulcast. So you're the first person I've actually interviewed from that. It wasn't a joint venture.
mm-hmm.
But no, again, I appreciate it. Definitely want to say thanks. And if anyone out there listening would like to be in contact with you for what you do, where can they get a hold of you at?
On Facebook, and on my Facebook business page is Linda's Spiritual Corner, or TikTok too. Is Jade_Lee012, and I'll send you the links to my social media.
Okay, yeah, and I can add those into the show notes.
Okay.
But well, Linda, again, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming out and talking with me tonight.
I appreciate you too. It's fun. Maybe, you may discuss a little bit more. I can come back in your show. We can get a little bit more deeper and in depth about subjects and stuff.
Definitely. I signed up for something the other day for guest, and I've been contacted by like a bunch of people that have been writing books and then a lot of psychics. So I've got I'm looking at it right now. There's 29 different people that have emailed me, and probably about 10 of them are psychics. So I was like, this is more information or more people reaching out to me than I'm used to. So it's hard to keep up at this point.
It's okay. I'm always here. You know where I'm at. I'm not going anywhere.
All righty. Well, I think we're going to wrap this one up. So again, thank you.
You're welcome.
Remember, the truth lies in the stories we share, the connections we make. Stay curious, stay open-minded. Thank you all for joining us on this journey, and until next time, keep questioning, keep seeking, and keep exploring the unknown. Good night, everyone.